Hello, picture book creators. I wanted to show you an inside glimpse into some storyboarding that I'm starting for an upcoming picture book. I want to show you my process of how I line up my manuscript with my storyboard for a 32-page picture book. This one is my author proof. I've been posting videos about reviewing my author proof from KDP. You can check that out on the channel. But I'm working on a new book. So this one's upcoming. A Busy Day in ABC Woods, and I'm working on one that's yet to be titled, but it's a rhyming picture book about a bear with no manners. And I have worked over the last year to complete the rhyme, and I knew it was going to be 32 pages. So I was specifically thinking of the different stanzas of the rhyme to be showcased on either a page or two on a page, but I knew a general idea of how I was going to break up the story and the text throughout 32 pages. This manuscript is still in the final editing stage, but it is in a good enough spot that I can move forward with illustration. I know the general idea of what's going to be, in each stanza. So it'll just be a word here or there that changes, but nothing major that I can't move forward with illustration. So the first thing that I did, because I am a very tactile person, I do like to have things in print, even though this was all written on computer, I printed it. And I began to break up the stanzas by what page they would be featured on, and work out sort of like a division of the text generally. Now, this could all change. I am in very preliminary drafts here. And this is the continuation of the manuscript. So knowing that it's a 32-page book, and the fact that we do need to keep front and back matter in mind when we dedicate pages to the story, I have some teachings inside the picture book creators community on front and back matter and how, what to put on these pages and how to divide it up. And I also have some YouTube videos about it. But let's leave front and back matter out of this little demo here and just be thinking about this middle section of the storybook that I'm going to be filling with the story text and the illustrations. Okay, so we're looking at these page spreads from about page 6 to page 31. And so I also have these printables inside of the community as well. And these printables specifically are for a square 32-page storybook, like the ones that I typically publish in my own work. So knowing that this is my, I guess, boundaries of what I need to work with, I printed a couple of these out specifically for my bear story. Now, this here is my first, I guess, go at roughing out the illustrations. So I know that I'm going to need illustration in the front and back matter. Now, this is a personal preference, but one that I recommend to creators. My front and back matter is still very visual. So I still have framing and elements shown in front and back matter. So I'm still considering those when I'm planning out the illustrations. One thing that I do want to say as a side note, in my picture book writing class, writing picture books, I recommend that writers storyboard a writing storyboard, whether you are working with another illustrator or you are a hybrid like me. I illustrate my own books. Either way, getting your text and story into a division of pages on a visual storyboard is a really good practice. And just as a side note here, just kind of like to give you the overview of how I do that, you can see that I've broken these sections of my manuscript into numbers starting at 1. But really, if I'm going to make a writing storyboard, I should actually go through and give it a second number saying which page I intend for that to be broken on. So I broke it into 32 sections. Actually, no, excuse me. I broke it into 26 sections because I'm dedicating 26 pages. But then to keep myself organized, I should probably coincide the page number. For example, page 1 is actually page 3. No, I should say it this way. The first stanza here is number 1 stanza, but it's actually going to be on page 3. So I would put like first stanza, page 3. And that would be more for a written storyboard. And then you'd go through and you'd number your sections that you break your story text into. Okay, so that side note is completed. Let's look at the illustration side of it. In illustrating picture books, in the class that I teach all about the different elements that you may look at in your illustration, whether that be a full page spread. This would be a full page spread, also called a double page spread, or single. So single page illustrations. And then there are things like little elements that become vignettes, and there's framing. And I teach all of those different type of illustrations. And I'm keeping that in mind when I'm storyboarding. So even in my front matter, I'm kind of drawing myself a little frame. I'm writing info because that's where my info will go. And then we start on page 1, which I will give you a little spoiler of the story here, but page 1, the very first stanza of my manuscript says, "Rumble, roar," said the hungry bear. "Rumble, roar, who has food to share?" "Over here," said a deer so sweet, "I'll make some biscuits from my wheat." So, I think about the text that's going to go there, and I think maybe my very first, catching the audience illustration should be my bear roaring. And so I just kind of took a little marker and sketched my bear roaring. And then I go through each stanza that's going to be on each page. And I think to myself, do I want this to be a sort of a single page focused illustration, or is this something that I want the reader to move along the double page, like to bring their eye to the next page, which you can still do that with single page illustrations. But what I'm essentially doing is trying to balance out all the illustrations in my book so that I have some double page spreads and some singles and some that are just a simple little highlight. And I do this by just working through the concept. Now, what you're seeing here is my first go at it, but I'm actually going to do this multiple times. I'm going to do it tiny, literally like these little thumbnails. I'm going to do them tiny multiple times. I have a lot of my templates printed out. I'm going to think this through just conceptually on a tiny scale. And then when I feel like I'm happy with the direction it is and with the balance of the different illustrations and getting a concept for really what I'm going to need to illustrate, at that point, I will make these squares larger, either still on just like flimsy computer paper or something, or I will make them larger. Let's see if I have a sample of a previous book. I'll make them larger within a sketchbook, and I will really begin to work out the sketches and the characters. And when I start doing the character design, I'm not sure where they are in here, but I will start to do like multiple character renders and trying to get a feel for what I'm developing. And so I first go with the sort of overall, here it is back here. I first go with the overall thumbnail sketch to get a bigger bird's eye view of the whole book. And then I'll start to develop on a micro, like I kind of like dial in until I'm down to the micro level, and the actual illustrations can begin. The other tip that I have that I do share inside the community and my class is that when I'm ready to get going on the actual illustration, I'll do what I call a pilot painting. I think I made that up. Here, let me see. Off camera, I might have a pilot painting. This is a pilot painting. And it might not look much to you here on the camera. It's a very tiny watercolor. Let me grab the example of like how this pilot painting started the whole flavor of a book. So when I say pilot painting, it's just sort of like a piece of inspiration that helps me springboard the illustrations. And this one, you can see my book, Wait, Darling, Wait. The chicken is the same, and the animals. So this cow was a springboard from this one. And this little orange cat, who is my actual cat, shows up in the story as well. And so I used this pilot to be an inspiration. And the same, the ladybugs show up through the book, and the same kind of butterfly. And I didn't like paint many of these. I just made sure that I got one that I was happy with. And in fact, a horse never shows up in the book at all. I ended up, I think, cutting down the amount of animals and decided to take away the horse. And I think that was a creative choice because I couldn't come up with a color palette that worked for the horse. And I don't know, in the end, I was just like, I didn't want that much brown because the chicken's nest is brown. And so the horse had to go. I'll include a horse in some other book someday. But this shows you how after I did all of my storyboarding and character development, I created my pilot painting to inspire all the future illustrations that would come in the book. So I hope that this has helped you get some ideas for how you can take your manuscript, begin to break it into all the sections that you want featured on different pages, how you can use either my template within the Picture Book Creators community or something like this. I'm sure you can find one online if you're not if mine is not accessible to you. And then you can begin to break up your story in text and in picture, and then build on it, build it. Stretch yourself to think of new concepts, think of new things, then come to a point where you play around a little bit first, like play around with characters and style and choosing your palette, and then pilot painting, and then begin to just draw inspiration from that pilot painting and create your renders for the actual each page of illustration in your children's picture book. That's just a quick summary. And so thanks for being here on YouTube. Do all those things. Give a thumbs up, a comment below what your process is in storyboarding, or if you have any tips or thoughts to share. And like, subscribe, and stick around the channel for lots more picture book creation support. And you can find all my links below for the Picture Book Creators classes and community. Bye for now, everyone.